This is episode 55 of Off Script with Trish Glose. Intimate interviews and fun conversations with interesting people. In front of my microphone today is Davie Carmichael, head coach, soccer coach at Southern Oregon University.
Yep.
Hi.
Thank you for having me, Trish.
Thank you for being here. I met you a few weeks ago at Danson Winery.
Yep.
You were there with your whole family.
The whole extended family, well, the American side of the family, yes. So,
American side of the family. Good point. Because if you're already listening to this podcast, you know that someone has an accent and it's not me.
Yeah, just a little bit. It's starting to fade over time, but it's still quite evident, I'm sure.
It is not fading, Davie. that accent is not fading whatsoever. But I did meet you at Danson. And the weird thing, it's not weird for people who know me, but I was immediately attracted to your dog.
It wasn't my dog.
Not
it was
your
my
dog.
Yep, it was my sister-in-law's dog, and yes, it's a beautiful little French terrier. French bulldog.
French bulldog.
French bulldog.
Remind me of his name again. Brody. Oh, just Brody was adorable. We were at Danson. There was a massive downpour.
Yep.
Enjoying wine.
Torrential
rain comes down, and you guys run under the tent where kind of we were, the umbrella, I should say, and we struck up a conversation as I usually do with people.
Yeah, we were probably very fortunate to be there that day. We had a little phone call in advance, and they said they didn't allow kids, and the rain was coming down, and we brought the whole family with all the kids and the dog, and they managed to make accommodations for us. So
that's nice. And then, strangely enough, I saw you the very next day, you and the entire family in Ashland.
Yep, we like to get about, and see the restaurants and see the scene and feel the vibe, and the whole family was here, so we were all showing them around. And,
I love it.
Getting to know Ashland a little bit ourselves as well, and Glose, where we met you that day, was probably our favorite place in town.
Nice. And I think your father-in-law was there. He's from Southern California.
Yep. So my wife's family are all from the Solvang, Santa Ynez Valley region, which is just kind of north of Santa Barbara.
Right. And so my husband's from Southern California, so they struck up a conversation. So it was then I knew this podcast was meant to be. I was like, I have to have Davie on my podcast.
Awesome.
So Davie Carmichael, tell me where you're from originally.
Originally born and raised and grew up in Glasgow, Scotland, the south side of Glasgow.
Okay. Help me out. What was it like?
At the time, it was normal. Looking back, I probably didn't appreciate living in Scotland as much as I do now when I go back to visit. But I grew up in a bed and breakfast, so it was a little bit different from the traditional way you were raised. So we always had Americans and tourists and foreigners in and out of the house, and it was just a great experience to grow up in that environment. Glasgow, you probably get about one nice week in the year, and the rest is drizzle. So at some point every day, the sun may come out, but the rain is always evident. So
one nice weekend?
One nice week. So it's not
week a year?
Yep, and that's when everyone gets their tops off and the sunshine comes out and the paddling pools come out and
sun's out, guns out, right?
Sun's out, guns out. Yep.
Awesome. Big town, big city.
It is a big city, yeah. It's probably it's the biggest, most industrial city in Scotland.
Okay.
It's not the capital, but it's got the best people.
Okay, the best people. And you said you grew up south of that?
I grew up in the south side suburbs of...
Okay,
yeah.
Suburbs.
Yeah, suburbs.
Okay.
We don't call them suburbs, but...
No.
Yeah, we grew up in the south side of Glasgow.
And did you grow up with siblings?
I did, actually. My older brother, he left for America before I did, and he's part of the reason that I came over here. He's now living in West Palm Beach, Florida.
Nice.
So it was just me and my brother growing up together and being a year and a half apart. Lots of fights and lots of sibling rivalry.
It's the definition of love-hate, isn't it?
Of course it is, yeah.
Yeah. So you grow up in Scotland, and I can't believe there's one nice week a year.
I mean, you get a little bit more than that. But
sure, I know what you're saying. But
the rain's always evident, like I said. So it makes things beautiful, though. It makes things green, and
Oh, for sure. A bed and breakfast. So what was interesting about that? You literally shared your house with strangers.
We did. We had separation from the family unit attached to it. But yes, there was always breakfast in the morning with the foreigners and getting to know people and playing little pranks on them, and it was a fun experience to grow up in that atmosphere.
Pranks? How so? What kind?
Every now and then there would be little things left in certain places.
Nice. That's funny. Why a bed and breakfast? Was it something your family had in their...
Yeah. So I think my father was made redundant from his job and he was given a severance pay, and they decided to take a little bit of a risk, and they invested their money in that, and it really paid off, and it was something that they didn't have to leave for work, so they were always around their children, always around their family, and
Nice.
it wasn't just my mum and dad. My grandparents really helped out too, and it brought us all closer together. It was always, we had time, which was the most important thing.
Fantastic. How big was the bed and breakfast?
I believe we had 7 rooms, 7 guest rooms in the house.
Wow,
so it was
that's pretty big.
It was pretty big. It was it's an old villa type building that was renovated, and it still had a lot of the traditional and original features to it.
Really cool. What kind of tourists? You said Americans and then other people from around the world.
Yeah, so we weren't far away from Glasgow Airport. We were probably about 10 minutes away from Glasgow Airport. So a lot of the marketing that was done was to people that were coming to visit Scotland and use Glasgow as a kind of a base while they were touring Scotland. So we had visitors from all over the place, from all over the world, and a couple of the guests that really stand out in my mind were I remember with a family from Bosnia who during the Civil War. Over there in Eastern Europe, we had a young man who was in the brain trauma unit at the Glasgow infirmary.
Wow.
And his family were staying with us. So there was a lot of emotional times too. There was a lot of fun, but there was also a lot of people that were coming for different types of reasons. So it was really eye-opening. It was really, it was an interesting upbringing.
Do you think seeing all of those tourists there kind of made you want to go visit these places? Was that...
I think so, yeah. I mean, I think I've always had that little bit of a travel bug to, see outside of Glasgow, outside of Scotland. And I'm not sure that's what brought me to America, but certainly it gave me a good foundation to, look to explore the world.
Cool. What brings people to Scotland? Why do most tourists come to see what?
I think from my understanding of meeting most Americans that have some form of DNA heritage that has Scottish linear, they want to go back and see their roots and where their families came from. And
Nice.
Scotland has a lot of history, and it's a really beautiful country with, like I said earlier on, beautiful people. So I think there's many different reasons that people would come.
I want to go because, speak English there, right?
I mean, it doesn't sound like it. But
I was going to say,
yes.
not that means anything, because half the time it's so fast and
Sure.
there's slang, right? There's different words for different things.
There is, and even within Scotland, Glasgow has a different dialect and slang terms than the city 30 minutes away, Edinburgh. So you can pretty much pinpoint where people are from when you meet them in the States.
Really?
With their accent. So, and I think that's the same for England as well.
Yeah.
They're such small countries, but very different in every city.
When you go back, does your family or friends be like, "Oh, your accent's wearing off"?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, it's the instant. I mean, I think it thickens a little bit immediately when you meet someone on the aeroplane on the way back to Scotland, but more so, I think, just words that you say. There's terms that Americans use that you have to use for them to understand. And
like what? Give me an example.
Sidewalk, we would never say sidewalk.
Okay, what would you say?
We would say pavement.
Pavement.
You guys say trunk of the car. We say the boot of the car. So there's just little terms like that become very evident that you've been away from home.
Sure. The butt of the car?
The boot.
Like a boot like you would wear?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So just the small things.
I love it. No, it's awesome. Do you still have family there?
I do. My mum and dad are still there. My grandma's still there. All my extended family, cousins, relatives. So me and my brother are here in the States, and I have one cousin who's in the States as well, all for soccer reasons.
Oh, crazy. We are going to talk a lot about soccer. What'd you do growing up in Scotland, you and your brother, besides the bed and breakfast, obviously?
Sure. I mean, not to sound boring, but soccer was our life, and it was what was ingrained in us, and it was what was on the media, and it was what was on the news and the back page of the newspaper. So it wasn't boring at the time, but it sounds boring when I talk about having the will to do nothing else but play soccer and play football growing up. We did ski a little bit. We did some travel skiing in France and Austria, and we did ski, but soccer was the core of our culture.
And let's be real, it was football. It wasn't soccer.
It was football.
Football, exactly. You played when you were little. You played in like high school, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and we didn't play high school. I played club soccer with a professional organization, and was lucky enough at 16 years old to sign a professional contract that was a kind of youth contract that was linked in with the government as well. So I was lucky to be with a professional organization from a relatively young age. Okay,
obviously you and your brother, you were good at it.
I was good. My brother was exceptional, but his attitude towards the game was a little bit different.
What do you mean?
It wasn't it wasn't the Scottish style of play. He was very technical and wanted to play with a little bit less pressure. With the Scottish game is very hard hitting, very fast, very transitional, and he was a little bit different in terms of his style of play.
Okay.
But he was an exceptional player. I think if he had been somewhere else, he could have went to the next level. But
Like, you mean, was he more laid back, or was he
yeah,
more...
very laid back in personality, very laid back and wanted time on the ball, and his touch was excellent on the ball, and it was just a different type of game in Scotland. It was pretty ugly.
Is this what you wanted, both of you wanted to be when you grew up, soccer or football players?
Yeah, I think 95% of young Scottish boys, that's the dream, and that's the desire to be a professional footballer.
Yeah. And families, I mean, was your family fully supportive of you playing football?
Yeah, they were. I mean, my mum didn't really come to many games, but she was certainly supportive and gave us every opportunity to play.
Okay. We're going to move on a little bit, but do they still have the bed and breakfast, or is that...
No, they don't. They sold that one a couple of years before we moved out here to the States. So
okay.
I think the memories that are attached to it will always be there. And
I bet.
Times have moved on a little bit now. So
how many times, how often do you go back and see them?
As much as often. I mean, with having a family, it's really tough to go back often. I actually just got back. My best friend, or one of my best friends, was getting married, so I was the best man in his wedding. And unfortunately, we just had a newborn baby, so the family couldn't come.
Right.
But I went over there, and it was fun.
You went. Well, I was going to ask, how much fun was it?
It was incredible. It was. I was only there for the week, but just to be with the boys again and be with my family again.
Yeah.
And, my family are pretty close with the groom's family, so everyone was there.
Okay. When did you leave? Before you have two kiddos, right?
I actually have 3 kids.
3 kids.
So I have 2 with my current wife, Christina. We have Maxwell Jackson.
Yes, I met him.
He is energy right now. So he's 3.5 years old and loves the game, loves soccer.
He is the cutest thing. Oh, so cute.
A large percentage of the day.
Right.
He is. He's adorable. And then we have a newborn, 3 months. It's Copeland Rhodes. And actually, Copeland Rhodes' name is named after one of the stands in the stadium of Glasgow Rangers Football Club. So we named him after the stadium, I guess you could say, which sounds a bit ridiculous, but
no, it doesn't. I was just gonna say roots run deep. I think with most families, obviously you're very, very proud of your heritage, and so you don't want anyone forgetting that.
Sure, that will never come away from me. Scotland's always going to be in my heart.
Always.
And then my third child, Charlie Buttercup, she's in Cleveland, Ohio right now with her mum, and she's 12 years old. So she's
Charlie Buttercup.
Charlie Margaret Buttercup Carmichael. So she's never actually been in Oregon. She was in California last year. She comes down for the summer, and I saw her at Christmas time in Florida. So I get to spend as much quality time as possible being so far away from her, but she's an amazing young girl.
Aw, where did Buttercup come from?
The Princess Bride. So our mum was a...
Yes!
Inconceivable, huh?
That's amazing. I don't know why I didn't put that together. That's adorable. Do you guys call her Charlie?
Now that she's 12, she doesn't like going by Buttercup. I think she gets a little bit embarrassed at school, so we just call her Charlie.
Well, I guarantee you, when she hits a certain age, it's going to be really cool that there's Buttercup in her name.
I think so.
That's amazing. That's so awesome. I love it. So when did you decide to come to the States?
I decided to come slightly early in the year of 2003. I had been released from my professional contract that I discussed earlier on. At that point, talking about the style of soccer or football back home, I wanted something a little bit different. So somebody brought up the idea of potentially doing a soccer scholarship. It was something that was unknown territory to me, and did a little bit of research, went on a few tryouts, and then was managed to be recruited to Cleveland State University over on the East Coast. So at that point, I just took that risk of moving away from home at such a young age, and it really paid off over the last 2 decades.
Well, yeah. How old were you?
I was just turned 19.
Wow.
So I was still relatively young.
Yeah. Did you have a goal of coming to the States, or was this... You just really wanted to play soccer?
Yeah, so my older brother, he was coaching. He was doing extended summer camps and 9-month contracts with a company called UK Elite. So I came to visit him a couple of times and realized that lifestyle was something that really suited me. And it was at that point, with the advice of someone else, to start pursuing the collegiate scholarship option.
Okay, so you go to school and you're playing soccer.
Yeah, and you don't have that opportunity in Scotland. You can either go to university or you can pursue the professional football route. So there's never really the combination of both, and it really made sense to me to continue to play at a high level, and hopefully something would happen after college. But if it didn't, then I would always have that platform to fall back on.
Yeah. Do you know why they don't allow you to do both?
Yeah, I'm not sure why.
Just
I don't know
how
the
it-
reasons. It's just kind of the way it's always been culturally set up. And I think in this country with American football and basketball and the funding behind collegiate sports, it makes sense to have soccer and other sports involved, whereas in the UK, it's just really rugby and football.
Right. So you moved to Cleveland.
I moved to Cleveland, Ohio. Had a really good experience there. I did pretty much what I tell my student athletes not to do. I transferred after a year, and then played 1 year in Michigan at Northwood University for an incredible coach, an incredible person, and then moved back to Cleveland to finish my degree at Notre Dame College of Ohio. So I played at 3 different schools in 4 years.
Wow. And that's what you tell your athletes not to do?
Yeah, I tried to tell them to pick somewhere that, make sure all the boxes are checked before they actually decide on somewhere, and hopefully it can be somewhere they'll be for 4 years.
Okay. So let's back up. First, talk about, was there any sort of culture shock?
Absolutely.
Like what?
Living downtown in a big city with skyscrapers, and Cleveland State University wasn't the traditional closed campus. There was no real campus environment or feel. It was downtown and the buildings were spread out, so it was unique in that way, and it was a little bit scary and daunting at first, but I really enjoyed my time there.
Right. A lot of campuses, I think, especially when we think of a college campus, they're a little more closed in. They're kind of cozier. So you're talking about downtown city spread out.
Yep.
Okay.
Fire engines, ambulances, and it was very interesting, but it was.
Yeah.
I think it helped me develop as a young man.
Okay. And then why the move to Michigan?
Probably don't want to talk too much about that, but it was, let's just say philosophies didn't match in terms of a player and coach.
Gotcha. So you were looking for a different coach.
I was looking for a different type of style of play, yes.
Mm-hmm. And then there for a year.
I was there for a year, and the reason I moved back to Cleveland, I was originally recruited by Notre Dame College of Ohio, which was in the Cleveland area. And really, I just missed Cleveland and the people and the connections I had made. So it was time to come back. Well, I wouldn't say home, but it was time to come back to Cleveland.
Okay. And then where did you meet Charlie's mom?
She was a swimmer at Notre Dame College.
Okay. So that's where you guys met.
That's where I graduated from, and that's where we met.
Okay. So you graduate from there. What's next after you graduate?
After I graduated, actually, we'd never... obviously, I was an F1 student on a visa, and Charlie's mum and myself decided that lives were going to go on different paths, and I actually moved back to Scotland because I couldn't stay in the US. But I was flying back as much as I could. I got a full-time job back there with a company that did sports recruiting and networking agency stuff. So I was a sports scholarship consultant, and my job back home in Glasgow was pretty much to tour the UK and a little bit of Europe, looking for talented soccer players that were interested in coming across to the States. And then we would promote them and market them to college coaches. So I was still actively involved in the game. I had a sports management undergrad. So I felt like I was using my skills from my undergraduate degree plus my background in soccer as well.
Sure.
So I did that for a little bit, while at the same time looking for opportunities back in the States to come back so I could be close to Charlie.
Right.
And that took me about a year and a half.
Because she was born at this time.
Yeah, she was born right before my graduation.
Oh man!
So she was born in March 20th, 2007, and I
That's
graduated
tough.
in May. So it was really tough. It was a tough time. Charlie's been over in Scotland quite a number of times as well, so she's got a really close connection with her grandparents, and
I love that.
it's incredible. And they speak. My dad and mum speak to her on the WhatsApp, and they FaceTime her every now and then. So she still feels very Scottish.
Still connected.
She is.
That's part of it for sure. So at this point, you're still tied in with soccer and sports. Do you want to play or do you want to coach?
It's a very good question. I think that I would have ideally loved to have been a player. In this country, the opportunities are very few and far between in terms of making the big money that European players make. However, I'd tore my ACL my junior year, and then I retore it, and got surgery again my senior year. So with 2 ACL operations, it was never going to be something that I could pursue, I don't think.
Yeah.
I was never the same player after that.
For sure. At that point, do you kind of have to make that tough decision? Like, well, I love the game so much, I need to find something to keep me connected to it?
Yes, it was always, I was never going to leave the game if I didn't have to. I just couldn't imagine myself being in an office job 9 to 5. And although I felt like that a little bit in Scotland as the consultant, I was out and I was on the soccer field once or twice a week. So I don't think I could be confined to an office job permanently.
So you have this job in Glasgow. You're still traveling back and forth to the States. I guess what happens next?
I was given the opportunity to coach at Lake Erie College, which at the time was a transitioning D3 school into the D2 model. I was a graduate assistant coach there, so they gave me the opportunity to come back and pursue a graduate degree, which was paid for.
And coach.
And coach. So I was the assistant coach on that team, Lake Erie College Storm, and I was also doing my master's degree in education.
Wow. What was that like, coaching? Assistant coaching.
I was so young at the time that, I still wanted to be a player. So I don't think I was the coach then that I am now. That was my first kind of learning experience, and that first year was tough. But I started to learn on my feet a little bit about how things maybe should be done. And it was a good experience.
Yeah. I'm somewhat of a control freak. When my new reporters would come in and I'm training them to be good journalists.
Sure.
I tended in the very beginning just to take over.
Sure.
Let me show you how to do it. Just here, give me the camera. Here, let me write it for you. And I think it's hard when you love what you do. You love playing football so much. You just want to kind of get out there and, guys, let me show you how it's done. Was that the same for you?
Yeah, I think a little bit. I think that was certainly the case. The head coach at the time was also the head coach of the women's program.
Okay.
So he gave me a lot of freedom to be in charge of sessions, which was really where I enjoyed being, was on the field, and he really dealt with the administration piece for both programs. So actually my wife was the graduate assistant on the women's program. That's where we first met.
Really?
So
all these, this gorgeous woman who I actually met. So she played soccer too?
She did. The head coach at the time at Lake Erie College was the head coach before then, previously at Mesa State in Colorado.
Okay.
My wife played for him as a student athlete, so he brought her across to the East Coast.
Okay.
Away from California.
Right.
Into the snow.
So when'd you first meet her?
2009.
Okay. What was that like? Were you guys on the soccer field?
Yeah, we were working in the office together, and really we didn't start dating until a couple of months. We were just playing soccer every day and hanging out, and actually looking for relationships for her in bars and vice versa. And we just realized that we were meant to be together, and took that next step, I guess you could say.
She seems like a pretty cool chick.
She's all right. Yeah, she's pretty awesome. She's a great mom. She's definitely the perfect fit.
Okay. So you're there, you're getting your, you're learning, you're essentially learning how to be a head coach.
Yes. I mean, I was brand new. I would never really, my brother was always a coach. He was always an exceptional coach. And I was more inclined to be on the field as a player.
Okay.
So I'd never really thought about it too much. So it was going to take a little bit of a learning curve to really understand the game. And you kind of see things differently when you're a coach.
How
when
so?
you're a player. You see more of the intricate movements and gaps that can be exposed. When you're a player, you're just kind of more focused on yourself and how you can improve your own game to fit within the team philosophy, whereas as a coach, you're looking at everyone on the field and how they can fit the system and find success.
Right. You're essentially looking at the team and how the team can work best as a team.
Absolutely. And that's not always just playing the best players. That's sometimes playing the people that fit in the certain positions within the system that you're trying to implement. So that was eye-opening for me, that it's not just about putting the best players on the field.
Yeah. You graduated, obviously?
I did, yep.
Okay.
With the help of my wife, who was doing the same degree and helped me out a lot with some of my papers. And
Aw. Yeah. Nice wifey. Do you start applying for jobs? How does that work?
So what happened, so my graduate assistant was a 2-year program, so I was going to be an assistant for 2 years.
Okay.
After my first year, the head coach moved on. For whatever reason, he'd moved on, and the job opened up. So I had to go through the application process to become the head coach of Lake Erie College. I think they actually offered it to someone before me that turned it down. So I was the second person in line, and they gave me the opportunity to take the head coaching role. And that first year, through that transition from D3 to D2, my first year as an assistant coach, the program was 1-16-1. So win one game, lost 16 and tied one. My first year as a head coach, we turned that around. And when I eventually left, we won 11 games. When I left the program to move on to the next opportunity. So
look at you, coach.
It was a nice experience to kind of build a program from the foundation up. And it's a very successful program now when I look back, and there's a very good head coach in place, and I'm very proud of what we did there.
Do you have a philosophy when it comes to coaching?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I like the game to be played simply. I like it to be played attractively at the right times. I'm very possession based in my mind, and I don't believe in just transitional soccer for the sake of winning games. I think it has to be more than that. I think there has to be a developmental piece to it as well.
Right. Well, I mean, I played very little sports growing up, but there is something to be said about mentors, coaches, someone that you can learn from, that you can, have this role model in your life. So it's not all about winning. It's about developing these young men and women to be good people.
Absolutely.
So what did you find? What were the challenges when you took over that head coaching job? What were some of the challenges that you were facing?
The biggest challenges back then were really the administrative stuff, like the on-field stuff. I felt like I was getting a real hang of and understanding what we needed to do from a technical and tactical perspective. It was more the admin piece that I'd never operated a budget of that size before, and it was figuring out how to get through the season and travel and hotels and uniforms and making sure things were done professionally but within the means of the budget.
Right. Did you face any issues with the players moving from that assistant head coach to head coach role? Any opposition, I guess?
No, there wasn't. I brought in 16 players my first year as a head coach, so it was almost a new program. We graduated quite a lot.
Gotcha.
And the guys who were left behind, I think, had a respect for me already. And like I said, I was already kind of, not the head coach, but on the field, I was doing a lot of the sessions. So I kind of demanded that respect as an assistant, I think. So there was no real teething problems, I don't think.
That's good. So you kind of you made a name for yourself within this program.
Yeah, and it was local in Cleveland, and it was, it was where my network of soccer colleagues were and ex-teammates. So I feel like I established myself within that community.
So do you guys decide you want to stay there, or you're looking to go somewhere else?
I was really happy with Lake Erie College, and an opportunity opened up at the University of Buffalo, which was the division higher, Division 1. The head coach at the time was a former teammate from back home in Scotland who gave me the opportunity to come in and be his first assistant. I'd never coached at the Division 1. I'd played at the Division 1 level, but had never had the opportunity to coach at that level. So I went there as an assistant coach, and Stu really taught me a lot about how things operate and really the ins and outs of organising a Division 1 program. So I'm very grateful for that. So I was there for 2 years as an assistant, competing against some of the best teams in the country.
Wow.
So we had a very good 2 seasons. And then Stu was the head coach, Stu Riddle. He decided it was time for him to move on, and he took a really good opportunity in Northern Kentucky University. And at that point, like it happened at Lake Erie, the job was open, and I had to make my application process again.
Okay. And
then I was successful. I ended up being named head coach in the January.
Awesome.
Of a Division 1 program, which is kind of a dream for most coaches, is to coach at that level, if it's not within the professional ranks. And then unfortunately, I don't know if I've had this conversation with you, in the May, the University of Buffalo decided to discontinue men's soccer. And our season kicks off in the fall. So we'd recruited internationally. We had our team organised and ready to go. And the university decided to cut men's soccer. It cut baseball, women's rowing crew, and men's swimming and diving. That was just done kind of at what felt like at the drop of a hat. So my job at that point was to look for a new place to go, but
I guess
I'd also given all these young boys an opportunity to come and play and offered scholarship, and
that's devastating.
It was devastating, and for many reasons as well. We had an assistant coach who had just joined us from the University of Dayton, who was incredible, and he pretty much came to Buffalo. The program got cut, and now he was left without a job. So we made it our job as a coaching staff to take care of the student athletes and make sure that we did not leave Buffalo until those guys had a new opportunity. So we got on the phone with coaches. We made sure that we promoted them, and thankfully every player that was on that roster, whether they were incoming or returning, found a new opportunity to go
at a different school or
different school, and some of them, to be honest, had better opportunities after that. So maybe it was some silver lining within that.
I have a really cheesy line. I always say every detour is a blessing. So
I have to agree with that.
Yeah. Why cut so quickly? Funding?
No, I'm not sure. It's never really been addressed fully. I know there was a building project getting in place for a field house, and I'm not sure if there was Title IX, gender equity issues, but whatever the reason, when I look back, administration at Buffalo from the athletic department were excellent with me, and they always have been. Even until today, you know, there's still a resource for me and a reference for me. So I'm not sure who the decision was made from, if it was made from administration or it was made from someone in the presidential office. But the decision was made, and we had to kind of live with it. And
that's heartbreaking.
It was heartbreaking at the time, but looking back, the experiences and opportunity I've had since then, it's probably been the best thing for me.
Okay, because at this point, you don't have a job.
I didn't have a job. I was still under contract though, so they were going to honour that, which was incredible of them.
Okay.
Not just myself, but the assistant coaches as well. So my wife is from California, like I said, and we would visit there often. And we said, you know what, let's take a chance. So we pretty much sold everything we had. We sold TVs or couches, or we sold everything.
Okay.
We packed up the GMC Sierra truck with our tents, and we pretty much travelled across the country. And it took us about 3.5 weeks to go from Buffalo to California. We stopped at every national park we could, and we camped with a 1.5-year-old.
Oh, man.
So we were at the Grand Canyon, Zion, Shenandoah National Park. We did the Smoky Mountains. We were all over the place, and just took that time really to be a family and get closer and enjoy this beautiful country. So we ended up in California, and I actually volunteered because I was still under contract with Buffalo. I volunteered my time at Cal Poly, which was another Division I institution in San Luis Obispo.
That's a pretty place to be.
It was a beautiful place. So we lived in Solvang, actually, wine country, which is going back to the first conversation about how we met.
Right.
So we lived in wine country, and I drove about an hour to Cal Poly every day, and that was the best experience of my coaching career.
Really? How so?
I was working under a coach called Steve Sampson, who was the former US national team coach in the '98 World Cup. An incredible man, incredible coach.
Wow.
Somebody that I learned a lot from in terms of how he manages people and his personality and how he demands respect. But also at the same time, when I met with Steve, you walk in his office and he's got the US national team jersey from the World Cup up in his walls, and he has photographs of shaking hands with Nelson Mandela and Bill Clinton. And
little intimidating.
It is, but at the same time, he had no ego. He didn't have anything to prove, and you know, sometimes people that have achieved some great things will have an arrogance or a cockiness to them, and Steve doesn't have that. I was impressed that he spoke fluent Spanish, and a lot of the Hispanic players on the team really felt engaged to him as well. So that was the best experience I've had in terms of learning and development.
Yeah.
It was an incredible year.
He sounds amazing.
He's an incredible guy, and he was also the Costa Rica national team coach. So he's done a lot in his career, but again, really helped me he held me accountable. He made sure that I worked hard, even though I was a volunteer. He made sure that everything was done professionally, and held us to very high standards, but certainly really looked after me as well. And it's still a resource for me. If I pick up the phone, he'll be willing to give me advice. And
oh, I love that. I love people like that. It sounds like this was a little bit of an internship then for you.
It really was, and I'd already been a head coach before of a Division II, and I guess a Division I for a small period of time. And in going there, it was probably the development that I would have loved to have had before Lake Erie. And he was one of those people that, I'll hold near and dear for the rest of my coaching career.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm absolutely sure. So at this point, do you start looking for jobs?
No, because I'd committed to 2 seasons with Steve at Cal Poly.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that was the duration of my contract with Buffalo. So I'd kind of committed to that with the understanding that if something popped up locally, that he would support that, and he really did. So the opportunity opened up at Southern Oregon University. So I asked Steve if it was okay if I came for the interview, and he was a little bit upset at first, but understood it was probably the best thing for my family, and really got behind and supported me. So so I wasn't actively looking for jobs because I was having such a good experience at Cal Poly. And then when this job opened, it made sense to look at it a little bit in greater detail.
SOU recruited you?
Not recruited. The head coach had left.
Okay.
And they opened up a national search.
Okay.
So the job opening was posted, and I found out about it.
You found it. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So I was one of 3 candidates for the job.
Awesome.
So I flew up here and had probably one of the most grueling interviews that I've ever had, and for all the right reasons. And when I left and went back to my family in California, I told them about my experience, and my wife was very supportive again, even though that I had moved her from Cleveland to New York to Buffalo, and she was very behind the decision.
Amazing. What do you mean by grilling? Like,
it was just an intense day. I flew in, stayed in a hotel the night before. The morning we had an interview with the athletic director, Matt Sayre, all the head coaches, and then we had a field session with the team. We had a classroom session with the team. We had lunch and dinner with the head coaches. So it was pretty much a 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. type event, where there was no real downtime in between. And I think Matt Sayre, the athletic director, really hires good people. And I think putting you through that full day is essential to see, not just that you're putting on a face for a 1 hour interview, and it's more, do the players respect you? Do the head coaches respect you? Is there a mutual feeling throughout the day? So it was an eye-opening, tough, grueling day.
Well, and they probably want to see you too, a little under stress and tired. And
I think that the stress test is a little bit part of it too, yes.
Yeah. So when do you find out you get the job?
I think a week later, I flew back and had the conversation with Steve again back at Cal Poly and with my family, and Matt Sayre called, and at that point I was already pretty clear in my decision that I was going to come to Southern Oregon.
Awesome. What year was this?
This was just 2 years ago. Yeah.
Dang.
So I've only been here for one season.
Wow, that's really quick. How's it been?
I've absolutely loved it here. I took over a very successful program who had won the Cascade Conference for the first time in program history. And when I say history, it's only a 4-year-old program. So I took over a very good squad with a lot of pressure as well to sustain that.
Yeah.
And we had this past season, my first year as head coach here, we had the best season in program history, and that's credit to not just myself or my coaching staff, but the coaching staff before me who had left this program in a good condition.
Awesome. Do you recruit players yourself, or?
I haven't. On the roster that I inherited, I didn't recruit any of them. I've just finished my first cycle in my first recruiting class, so we're bringing in 10 young men for the new season. They'll all be incoming freshmen.
Okay, and you will help find those?
I did find them.
You found
between
them, okay.
myself and my coaching staff that's in place now, we all went out and we found these guys.
What do you look for in a player?
Every position requires something a little bit different. So more so than anything, we're looking for obviously talent and pace and speed and strength, but we're looking for understanding of the game, good character, good backgrounds, good work ethic. So it's not just about the talent. It has to be more of the characteristics of the person as well.
I was going to ask character. Is that a factor for you?
It is, and I think that's why this program's been so successful. There's such a strong culture of work ethic and looking after each other and unity that it has to be part of that during the recruiting process. You could put the 11 best players out there that don't have the right attitudes towards their teammates or towards the game, and it could fall apart. So yeah, absolutely. The character's a big piece of that.
Awesome. And what are you looking for the future for this team, this program?
So we're going to be very young next year. We're going to graduate 16 players next year. So
wow,
we're going to be very young.
Yeah.
The team that I inherited didn't when I first came in, didn't play the formation or the style that I hope to eventually play. And we're getting there slowly. The guys that I inherited are starting to understand what we're looking for and started to implement that a lot last season. So for the future of the program, I think we're going to build more towards that philosophy of how we want to play, what our identity is going to be, who we are as a team, and try and stick to that as closely as possible. Some of the players I have coming in this year are incredible players. We have a Scottish U18 national team player coming in, following my same journey that I took back in 2003. We have a US U17 national team camp player coming in that's currently with the Portland Timbers Academy. We also have another Portland Timbers Academy kid coming in as well. So they're going to be the recruiting class is going to be very strong, but it's going to take some time to adapt to the college game because it's fast.
Yeah. Well, I watch football occasionally, and the one thing, it always occurs to me, there's no slowing down. You guys are constantly running.
Sure.
All the time. I get exhausted after 5 minutes. I'm just like, no, I'm out.
Yeah, it's quite grueling. When we look at some of the top professional players, they're covering about 13 kilometers in every game,
right,
within a 90-minute period. So, putting that together with understanding the times to slow the game down and speed things up and press or drop off, and there's a lot more goes into it. I think sometimes from the naked eye watching the game, it's just
I'm sure
it's 22 guys just running around chasing a ball, but
yeah. Davie, I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to football. That's just but I do love watching it. It's super fun to watch.
Did you watch Liverpool-Barcelona yesterday? Did you?
Yesterday?
Yeah.
No, I missed that game.
Incredible. One of the most incredible games this year.
Dang. Well, where were you telling me to watch that game?
I actually missed it myself.
Did you really?
I saw the highlights on
Well, I would love to come watch you guys in action.
Please do, Trish. We'd love to have you.
That would be amazing.
Please
no,
do.
I will.
I'll get a schedule to you and you can...
I would love to. I would love
Please
to
do.
come catch a game and see you and your players in action. Well, we are going to wrap things up a little bit. I did want to ask, what's your brother doing these days?
My brother's actually, he's a high school PE teacher, and he's a triathlete right now. So he's actually, next weekend on the 18th, he's running the Miami 100 and the humidity of Miami. So pretty incredible athlete.
What's his name?
Matthew.
Matthew. Good luck, Matthew. Good luck with that triathlon. And he's a PE coach?
He's a PE teacher, yeah.
At in high school?
Yeah, so he was living in PA, Philadelphia, for most of his coaching
Okay.
career and decided to move away from the club soccer scene. And his wife took a job down there in Florida, and
Nice.
they're happy down there. They're loving it.
I don't know him, but he just sounds like he would be an amazing PE teacher.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
There's something to be said about coaches and teachers. The really, really good ones impact your life forever.
Absolutely.
I mean, obviously, you remember some of your best coaches you've ever had.
Yes, I do. Growing up, I'll just pinpoint one of them. Was a guy called Stevie Craig who really, made me love the game again after some downtimes. He really brought the best out in me. Gary Craig, his brother, was our other coach on that team, and I've had so many different role models. My father was also my coach a little bit growing up, and just I love his thought process on the game, and even during last season, I'd always pick the phone up with my father and figure out what he thought, because he was always watching games live on TV, and even if he couldn't be here in person, there was a live stream that he would always give me feedback on his thoughts. So I've had so many different role models. My grandfathers, both of them, were big football guys. So so many.
Aw, that warms my heart. What does your dad think about this job?
Yeah, he loves it. He's not been out here yet, so they're going to come for the first time. They're going to come in the fall, so I think they're going to catch 3 games, my mum and dad.
That'll be a really nice moment for your dad.
I think so.
I think so too. Let's talk about your tattoos. You have a nice sleeve,
I have.
kind of.
How many? Too many, maybe.
Too many to count?
Yeah.
What do you remember your first one? Obviously you do.
Yeah, I had like some weird tribal thing when I was like 15 years old back in
That sounds
Scotland.
normal.
Yeah.
That sounds normal. I think that's just rite of passage.
That's kind of covered up right now, but yeah.
Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, I mean the ones that represent my children, yes. So this is a Buttercup here. It was kind of retro Buttercup, you guess you could say. And, this little bear's from Maxwell. He was born in he wasn't born in California, but we raised him the last year in California. So I have a Californian bear, and we don't have anything for Copeland yet.
You need to work on that.
Yeah, it's just about timing, right?
Yeah. Sometimes I think you have to see their personality before you find what you want to represent.
Of course.
Them.
So when I first started coaching, actually, when I was young, I used to always coach with Under Armour and cover my tattoos up.
Really?
Just for professional reasons.
Yeah.
But as I've been involved in the coaching world for longer, I'm not as, I guess, ashamed about them. I'm more comfortable showing them.
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't know, maybe it's age. As we get older, we're just like, I don't care. Who cares anymore, right? Also, I wanted to say, Ashland, Southern Oregon University, what a crappy place to work every day.
Yeah, it's not the prettiest place in the world, is it?
Oh my gosh. And right now, it's stunning. When you look across the freeway at the Green Mountains and you can see all the purple wildflowers. Beautiful. It's like we're in Sound of Music or something.
Yeah, so we actually just, we practiced this morning at 6 a.m. and during that time the sun's rising and the clouds are turning pink and you've got the Cascade Mountains and Grizzly Peak in the background. So it's an incredibly beautiful place to work, and I feel very privileged every day that
right.
We do team building every Thursday. So tomorrow morning we're going to go out to Immigrant Lake and go a hike. And every Thursday we try to do a team building hike together.
Oh, I love that.
We're all getting to see the Cascade Range a little bit more, and
that's amazing.
It's been great.
Well, it sounds like you have a really awesome team, and those boys are working hard.
They certainly are. Yeah, this is our last week of training right now.
Okay.
I'm going to give them some time off to refocus the mind and get prepared for their final exams, and then we'll come back and do some strength work after that. So.
Okay, and then season starts.
We don't start till August 1st.
Okay. All right. So I encourage any listeners, go out and watch these boys play.
Absolutely.
Support local programs like this.
Thank you, Trish.
And good luck to the team.
Thank you.
I'm super excited for you, and I'm so glad I met you at a winery.
Likewise.
All right. We are going to move on to my final 3.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Do you need notes?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Yeah. Some people have them on their phone. Best advice you've ever been given?
I guess we've been talking so much about football. I think one, and I spoke about Stevie Craig, the coach, he used to always say, and this is something that we're holding dear at Southern Oregon University as well, and we're going to have it emblazoned on the locker room is enter the pitch with no doubt and leave the pitch with no regret. So I know it sounds quite cheesy, but for me, I try to live in every opportunity and every moment with those principles, and no doubt meaning be prepared and be organised if it's something that you really want to go after. And if it doesn't work out, don't have regrets and understand that you've put everything into that moment. So Stevie used to say that, and it was always about the game, the 90 minutes ahead. But I've really tried to use that in my goal setting and my objectives in life.
Enter the pitch?
The field. The field of play, sorry, yeah.
No, it's okay. I just want to make sure I understand.
The football pitch.
Okay, so say it again for me.
Enter the pitch with no doubt. Leave the pitch with no regret.
That's good. That's
a
good line of life, really.
I think so, yeah. You know, things don't always work out the way you hope, but if you put everything into it, then you can't look back with any resentment or anger, and and be confident going into it, and know that you're going in with all the right resources and tools.
You could apply that to your path. I mean, you've sort of been all over the place, and
I think so.
It sounds like you've held that philosophy everywhere you've been.
Yeah, I've tried to.
Nice. And who gave that to you?
It was Stevie Craig.
Stevie. And that was in Scotland, right?
That was back in Scotland growing up, and Stevie's son was actually a really good friend of mine, and Stevie was one of those coaches that I don't want to say you either love or hate, but if you do hate him for any reason, if he's not played you in the minutes you want, you always love him at the end of it.
That's nice. Okay, if you ever left this place, Southern Oregon, and I know you're a new resident here, what would you miss the most? What would bring you back here?
I think when I took this job, I said to the athletic director and the coaching staffs and everyone that was in that interview that the reason I wanted to take this job was because my path has been so up and down, and whether that was through choice or what had happened at Buffalo, I said I want to be here for an extended period of time. So I really don't want to leave. I've had a great experience here, and I think if I ever did leave, it would maybe be to come back at retirement age and really appreciate the beauty of this region of the country.
Fantastic. We get more sun.
You do, but it reminds me a lot of Scotland in terms of landscape and the greenery at this time of the year. So it's Scotland with a little bit more beautiful weather.
Okay, I like it. And if you were ever given a final meal and a final drink, what would that look like?
That's a tough question.
Why? Why?
Because
are you a foodie?
Well, you said a drink. Is it?
Oh no, you can have. It's your final day. Okay. You can get hammered.
No, so when I think about it, my father used to make a really good lentil soup. And mashed potatoes, and it's like a ground beef type thing with a gravy attached to it. It's called mince and tatties, we call it. So it's mince and potatoes, and it has carrots and onions in it, and it sounds pretty basic and pretty bland.
No,
but
it sounds fantastic, like very comforting.
A comfort food. I mean, a taste of Scotland, really. And a drink, I would probably have a Tennant's Lager, which is a Scottish lager.
Okay.
And a cup of tea.
A cup of tea. How many lagers would you have? A few?
Not too many.
Not too many. You
You
want to remember your final day.
Exactly. Why do I have a final day? Is this I'm on death row? Or?
No. A lot of people, I don't know. I know it's kind of morbid sounding, but yeah, maybe you're on death row. Maybe somebody in the universe has said, hey, tomorrow it's it for you. So live it up.
Right.
Today and tomorrow. I don't know. And I'm a big foodie, so I like to hear what people like to eat.
Tell. I think rather than the food and the drink, I would just want to be with people.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Doesn't matter what meeting, as long as I'm with the people that care and matter.
I've heard that too. Vinny, he owns a restaurant in downtown Medford, and he said there would be no food. It would be all of my family around the table, and we would just be.
Brilliant.
I know. It's lovely. So I just like to hear what people like to eat. Maybe I need to change the question. I'm not sure. Well, good luck to you.
Thank you very much,
Once
Trish.
Again, I hope I get to see you and your beautiful family maybe at a winery again.
Sure we will.
We can chit-chat a little bit more. Awesome. Davie Carmichael, you have been so fun. If you're listening to this podcast on iTunes and you like it, please subscribe, rate, and review. It helps other people find us. We're also on Google Play. You can also ask Alexa to open up Off Script. Check out the video portion of this podcast at KTVL.com. Just click on features and then Off Script. One more time, Davie Carmichael, head soccer coach at Southern Oregon University. This has been super fun. Thank you.
Thank you.